My name is Andrew Taylor, and it's a great pleasure to welcome you to the second season of Stick With It. Last season we had the fantastic host, Mark Hoffmeyer. Without his tremendous work and the fantastic interviews and guests he had, we wouldn't be back for a second season. This season, some amazing guests. I'll invite you now to settle in, relax, and enjoy Stick With It. Welcome everyone, and welcome back to Stick With It. On today's episode, I have a very special guest, a friend of mine and a friend to all pilots, of course. A great Qantas captain, retired now, believe it or not, a Top Gun pilot, and an all-round great fella. Captain Kevin Sullivan, welcome.
Thank you, Captain Huck.
So, Kev, all those years I flew with you as a second officer, I never knew that you were literally a Top Gun pilot until I read your book. So I thought I might start there. So while I was doing some research, I did the best research. I watched the two best flying documentaries possible. So I watched the 1984 Top Gun, obviously, because that's purely fact, isn't it? And then I also watched what I believe is another favourite of yours, an earlier documentary made in 1981, which was released under a couple of different names around the world. So in the US, it was released as Airplane, I believe, wasn't it? And in our part of the world, it was released as Flying High.
And I saw that movie over 100 times while I was deployed on the USS America.
So it was on pretty strong repeat on the ship, was it?
The whole ship was talking this way.
So if we start... Top Gun, Kev, I cannot believe. So in 1984, I was 14 years old. I had that movie poster on my wall with Tom Cruise and Kelly McGillis. Do you realise that every man below the age of about 300 wanted to be you, and every woman wanted to be with you at that time? That was, we've all read the story about how you got there, but did you process that when that movie came out, what you were living and what you'd been living?
This was the Cold War. Period. Okay.
Yep.
In the 80s, when I was selected, I'd been in the squadron over a year and a half, VF-114, and the squadron nominates you to go to Top Gun for 5 weeks to do the course.
And has the squadron got 20 airplanes or 50 guys flying? And
no, the squadron is quite small. Navy F-14 squadrons had, 12 to 14 airplanes.
Yep.
And Top Gun was based at Miramar, where we were based.
Fighter Town, USA.
So it was. And so I was, basically you would drive down to Top Gun building. You would brief what you were going to do. You would then come back to the squadron, get in all your speed slacks and everything, and jump in one of the squadron planes. And the whole squadron would be geared for you to get through the course. So nobody else could fly if the planes were down, basically, except me, which was amazing. And that's the way it works. And when you come back, you come back to the squadron and you pass on the latest intel, the latest tactical stuff, et cetera. So that was 1982, March to April. I did that. And then soon after that, we went out on the Enterprise again for an 8.5-month deployment. And when I came back, I had a month off and I was here.
And so, as I said, I did some research about this. So watching Top Gun was very important to me. And so I just wanted to get you to validate this statement. Gentlemen, you are in the top 1% of all navigators, the elite, the best of the best. We'll make you better. Viper, 1984. Well, so I assume you had a motorbike and jeans and a white singlet and played volleyball on the beach.
I did play volleyball with the with the base team.
So shirts off, jeans, aviators.
Well, there was, in those days, volleyball was sort of a nerdy sport, but I'd played at university as well. But I didn't answer your question before you asked when I saw the movie.
Yep.
I saw it in San Diego when it was the premiere. And basically, when I was on secondment to the Australian Air Force as a fighter combat instructor, we took, they did a field trip to the U.S. The U.S. Air Force exchange officer took them to Nellis for the F-15 and fighter weapons school, their program. And I went down to San Diego to grease the treads for them to come to Top Gun and get all the top level briefings that they would never have heard before.
Yep.
And in that time, and see, all I wanted to do was drink margaritas and have some carne asada burritos. And my friend who picked me up I said, so when are we going to La Jolla, get some margaritas, And he goes, no, we're going to the movies tonight. I said, what? Well, I don't want to go to the movie. What are we going to see? He goes, don't worry about it. You'll like it. And I said, and I was quite cranky. And so we went to the center of San Diego to this massive cinema complex, and the whole base was there with their girlfriends and spouses. And he didn't tell me what it was until it started.
You literally had no idea that it made a movie.
I didn't even know they were making a movie about it. And I just went, wow. And all the people you see in the background flying the planes, et cetera, are all my friends and contemporaries of that time. So I can always pick them out in the background.
Really?
Yeah. And the instructors, when they're sitting in the back plane with their pens, they're guys I know as well. So
did you go to the movies in your full whites or your
No, just went there.
RAF uniform?
And it was amazing, amazing to see it. And I think they did a great job with the first one.
Yep.
And of course has F-14 in it. But to see all my friends and colleagues that are involved in that and recruiting for naval aviation just went like this as a result. So, yeah, I thought, that looks pretty good. And right at the beginning, when they got the, and they're on the deck of the Enterprise, you can see my old squadron working up to go out again. Like there's a catapult scene.
Yep.
And if you look quickly on the tail, you'll see the anteater aardvark that was our squadron symbol, and then off it goes. And so I went, and that part always makes me
it's incredible.
Googly.
Can you think back a long time ago, I guess, the 80s? So sitting on the end of the Enterprise, for example, in that aeroplane, so you would have had a few hundred hours or 100 hours, or not many hours in the aeroplane, I guess, when you.
No, you do about 100 hours in the basically the F-14 school.
Yes.
It took a long time because there were so many F-14 squadrons deployed that the parts system meant that shore-based squadrons were lower on the totem pole for replacement parts. So a lot of planes were not flying, and in the RAG, or replacement air group, is what the school is. You would be lucky until you got to a certain point, like you're almost going to finish, then you got priority.
Yep.
So it took almost a year to get through it. And then before I even finished, and before, the last thing you do is go out to the carrier to do qualification day and night in the F-14. And my backseater was going to be the executive officer of VF-213, the Black Lions, and he's going, I want to get you in the squadron. So it's all like horse trading. Like,
just
who do we want?
The guys
we want him. But turned out they didn't have a spot. But I wound up going to 114, which was the sister squadron of that. And I was actually flying with them while I was still flying in the RAG.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as I finished the RAG, I did some more CQ with carrier qualification with my new squadron, and we were gone to workups within a week. So it was like, I talk about getting shot out of a cannon when I went to university and started all this journey, and it didn't stop.
So I did 100 hours in, say, a Piper Warrior or a Piper 172. So what's that feeling like when you're sitting on the end of a carrier in an aeroplane it's just amazing to be launched off on a catapult? Can we just talk about that and the simple things that most people I'll never experience that. So people are really interested. Like taking off on a carrier at night must be just the most frightening thing you've ever done.
I was thinking about that on the way in, but we say that carrier takeoffs are the most fun you can have with your clothes on. So it's violent. It's raw power, and you're on this catapult and you're accelerated in 300 feet from 0 to probably 150 nautical miles per hour, which has an excess over the minimum speed as a buffer. And daytime, it's a lot of fun.
And at night, noisy and lights and like in the cockpit when you've got your helmet on.
You got your helmet, you can't hear anything.
And you just zone. So that's your world. You've got the HUD and I guess you don't even see the end of the carrier. It's right there. You're literally looking straight out over the ocean.
Unfortunately, when the deck was pitching like it normally was, you would see the end of the carrier and you would see it going down
and then about to launch.
As you're hooked up to the catapult. And of course, the catapult officers are quite well experienced and trained. So they wait for the deck to come up.
Pitch up and away.
And that's when they shoot you.
Really?
So as the deck's coming up, you're going off. And it's just like, shh. And you look, I was very horse blinded. I would only look at I needed to look at, because we flew in some horrible conditions, especially in the Northern Pacific, with 40, 50-foot waves.
Really?
50 knots of wind, water temperature of 2 degrees. We had dry suits on under our stuff, and we were operating up there. Snow on the flight deck. It was really a hard deployment. And when you're going down the catapult and you see the ocean and it's slowly coming up as you're going off, it's just like, oh, I got to come back and land on that. So it's very intense, but you're young, you're bulletproof. And for me, I had 100 hours or so, probably 150 hours at that stage, 200 hours in the F-14. Actually, I did 900 hours in 3 years. Okay. So that's quite a bit. Yes, and I did over 300 carrier takeoffs and landings in that time as well.
Wow, really?
So we were very active. And so it was, plus we're managers for our squadron. A squadron is a self-contained unit in the Navy. We do our own admin, our own training, our own maintenance. So I was at the end of that, towards the end of that cruise, I was a division officer. I had 70 sailors I was responsible for 6 different branches of that division that I was in charge of. So that's where you get leadership experience, and it's hands-on. There's nobody really mentoring you unless they're kicking your bottom for something that you screwed up on. So you learn a lot out there. Not much sleep, always working, always flying, and still try to look after yourself.
And on a carrier, is the boss of the ship, he's a sailor. So how are the naval aviators?
No, he's a pilot.
Really? Excuse my ignorance and sorry. Really?
Yeah, only pilots can be the CO of an aircraft carrier.
Really?
And the commander of the air group, of course, is also a pilot. So it's very specialized. So to go that route, you go to ship's driving school, I think.
Yep.
And then you are assigned to like a oiler or something like that, replenishment ship, to get that seaborne experience.
Yep.
Become CO or XO, executive officer, then commanding officer. And then you come back, and all the ships are nuclear powered. So you have to go to nuclear power school as well. And then you're an XO, executive officer of a carrier, and then you become the CO. That's
a pretty amazing job, pretty full-on job, isn't it, being a CO of a carrier?
I looked at how much sleep they didn't get, and I thought, I don't think I want to do this. So that you were supposed to aspire to do this, but I was
flying airplanes is pretty cool, isn't it?
Fly airplanes. I didn't want to do all the babysitting or all the stuff that happens on an aircraft carrier. 5,000 roommates plus, that's a lot of people.
So I went to university here in Australia, and I did an aviation related degree, and we had a textbook called Aerodynamics for Naval Aviators. That thing's written in another language, Kev. So the Navy obviously took incredibly smart people to be able to understand that textbook. I cannot understand anything.
Well, I have one at my house.
That blue textbook, which is frightening.
Yeah, I did aerospace engineering for my degree, and all officers must have a degree. That doesn't have to be engineering. But I started reading that book when I was in high school because I knew what my path I wanted to pursue. And that book, is a brilliant book and is still active.
Yeah, you can still buy it. I had a look.
Yeah.
The thing is just frightening. I cannot believe that.
I love all the old photographs. I used to look at it. I mean, you can get as a reference book for my degree, but also to see all the black and white photographs of the frightening 1950s style jet airplanes that were operating off small aircraft carriers. That was, those were
brutal,
crazy days. Yeah.
I'm just amazed at how smart you guys must have been, or are, not must have been, but are, because that I can't even understand what's written in that book.
Well, when you start, so for me, once I finished university and got my degree, the Navy was paying for my tuition. So the next day, and of course, like I write about, we had to march every Thursday and wear our uniforms to class, etc.
Did the civvy students give you a hard time marching around?
Well, it was just after Vietnam. So they'd throw snowballs at us, and they'd be playing, they'd have these giant speakers and they'd set them up in their rooms, and they'd be playing The Doors and everything. And I actually thought it was quite funny. But
and Colorado's a pretty liberal part of the country as well, isn't it?
And so you wear your uniform to class. Some people appreciate it, but a lot of them would sort of not appreciate it. And because of the recent history of the Vietnam War. But the next day, I was in my dress whites, and I was inducted into the Navy as an ensign. And I waited, I think, 2 weeks at the university, and then I was on my way to Pensacola, Florida, for 6 weeks of indoctrination, which is some aerodynamics and physics, etc., academic as well as physical training. And then you go to your basic propeller plane. And for me, that was T-28.
Which is hardly basic, yeah.
Well, they had the T-34 Mentor, and they were transitioning those to a turboprop engine. So they had grounded them all, but they still had T-28s.
So here, we'll teach you to fly in that.
And I just went, wow, this is going to be great. And it was. Yeah. It was. A lot of people couldn't handle it was a handful. But I had great instructors my whole sort of year and a bit of training. But getting in the T-20, I only had 40 hours on it. And then I went off to basic jet training. So it went pretty quick.
So most people know the backstory. Ended up in Australia, fell in love, I assumed. All of a sudden you're staying and decided Australia was pretty good place to live. Most Navy pilots went to Delta, didn't they? That was a big...
American and Delta, yeah.
Delta, for some reason, loved Navy guys, didn't they? So lots of guys ended up there.
And FedEx too.
Did they?
And it's amazing because the career I had in Qantas, with the airplanes I flew, none of my colleagues that did that in the U.S. ever saw a 747 or a big wide-body jet because they're bidding and rank process by city, by seniority, by all that, and by aircraft type precludes that.
Yeah.
So I was very fortunate to have, people say, what are you flying now? I said, I'm flying 747
the Jumbo or
I'm flying 767. Yeah, Captain on 767. They're going, really? How long did that take? And I said, I don't know, 8 years.
Yeah. So how was it transitioning out of flying airplanes for a real reason to coming into an airline where we had a rank structure and seniority and a lot of old guys in the good old days? And I'm sure your CRM, sense of humor is different. That we had a lot of, pretty conservative guys. So a young fighter pilot with an American accent rocking up at Qantas in the 80s must have been an interesting time.
Yeah, it was. I was also, in that time, I was the secretary of APA as a first officer. Or second officer, I think. And I was in APA for 6 years, doing various stuff there. But to my impression always was, why are you guys making this job so hard? Because it was the fly by mouth, and it was and everybody's yelling, and the engineers are doing stuff, and everybody's doing stuff. And I just would sit back there as a second officer and go, what are you guys doing? And so then when I did my first officer training on the classic, I got pulled up one day by a training captain, and he goes, come to my room and talk about some things? I said, sure.
Up on Mahogany Road?
No, just while we were
up the line or somewhere, was it? Yeah.
He goes, I don't know. You're, and he was beating around the bush. I said, okay, I said, is my aviation skill okay? Oh yeah, it's very good. I said, my knowledge, yeah, it's really good. I said, maybe it's because I'm not yelling like you guys do. Yeah, that's it.
You got to yell more, Kev.
And I said, I trained for combat, Captain. I said, I trained for combat, and the F-14 is a 2-pilot or 2-crew airplane. I said, so what did we do when we were low on fuel and out of ammunition? We cracked jokes. We never got upset because raising your voice in the airplane is generating tension. I said, so we don't do that. We do this. And I said, but I will show you on the next sector that I can do
I can yell as good as the next
what
person.
you want me to do. And I was doing all this stuff, and I greased it on onto 0.7, and at night coming back in. And as I'm pulling off the runway, I just said, "How was that?" And he went,
Good. Tick, move on.
So that was, I was always questioning things when I was in Qantas, not to throw rocks, always to try to improve things, but it's world's best practice, so we don't have to.
Did you get a lot of CRM training in the Navy, or it wasn't invented in those days? I mean, you said you flew in a 2-crew airplane, so obviously you relied heavy on the Nav. He was looking after you as much as you're looking after him, obviously.
Flying around the aircraft carrier is the hardest thing you can do, and you have to communicate. It's a team too, and when you're engaged in aerial combat, communication is critical. Teamwork is critical. Not only are you talking to your backseater, you're talking to your wingman, and you learn a lot. And that's how I communicate when I was flying.
Yep.
Precisely, not running too many words, but staying to the basics so that people understand me easily, especially overseas.
Yep.
When you're dealing with people that English is their second language. So, yeah, it was no problem. It was actually so easy.
Yep.
But I couldn't believe it was
how complicated we made it.
Not easy.
Yeah. I guess we should talk about the Albatross or the Airbus on the desk. So it's an A330 for anyone watching us online or not sure about it. So, Kev, if I just give you a couple, I need to put my glasses on this. So what does 1242.27 and 1245.08 mean? Does that mean anything to you? I know it does. So that's 2 times. So 1242.27 local and 1245.08 local. That's both Perth times.
Oh, okay. Perth times, yes. Well, that was you're talking about our wild ride?
I am talking about the ride you hadn't exactly bought a ticket on, but we're in...
Yeah, it was a wild ride, an easy ticket ride, at Disneyland. But I wrote this book
so anyone
to
who
talk
hasn't
about it.
Seen or read Kevin's book, so in the desk there is No Man's Land, the story of Qantas 72. So Kevin was the captain along with First Officer Pete Lipsett and Second Officer Ross Hales. It's an amazing read and it's an amazing story. So I'd like to talk about it, but it's been talking about a lot. So
there's still lots of things that people are discovering about it, and there's many spokes to this wheel. And that day it was fine, and there was nice weather. There was everything, and from the time I got out of the crew rest, watching 2.5 Men, to coming into the flight deck and sitting down, I was by myself for a very short time because Peter had gone back for his break.
Yep.
Ross went to the toilet, so I was by myself. And as soon as Ross came back in and sat down and strapped in, and I said, no change, then we started getting the start of all the failures and faults. And that was with the autopilot disconnecting. That's no big deal. You engage the other one. But then we started getting stall and overspeed warnings. And of course, it's daylight. I can look outside and nothing has changed.
Yeah.
So I know this is something not right. Not with what we're doing, but with what the aircraft is doing in the computers. And so I asked Ross, get Pete back up here because it's going to be complicated for sure. And so started getting the stall and overspeed. We did some ECAM when it was still working for us, but then the altitude tapes and airspeed tapes started going like this. And this is real unreliable speed, not blanking your screen and saying, okay, just fly off the other values. I said, this is a display failure. This is not unreliable speed. We had unreliable speed. So what does that mean? I got to disconnect the autopilot. And eventually I have to go to manual thrust as well. And so now, by the time I've done all that, we still had 50 minutes or so in the air, and I'm hand flying. Peter eventually got back. He was injured. So what do we do?
Well, you're obviously very fond of the F-14. You've got it there on your lapel. Were you ever scared flying that aeroplane?
The F-14?
Yeah, absolutely.
No.
Really never frightened yourself when
As I said, that's, on YouTube when they said, how did you feel in the QF-72? I said, it's the first time in my life I assessed that we were in trouble after the 2 pitch downs, because the plane's pitching down, I'm pulling back, and nothing's happening.
Yeah.
So I'm just along for the ride, and I'm a passenger. I'm an observer until the machinations of the transparent computer operations that we can't monitor run through their sequence. And okay, now I have control again, climb back up, do an ECAM, reset the Prim 3, and it was quiet. And then it started again, and then we pitched down again, not as bad as the first. But, in a Airbus, if you pull back on the stick, it's rate and magnitude, right?
Yeah.
So
nothing's connected to anything.
As it turns out, the plane's activating protection mode for angle of attack. So it's pushing the nose down to reduce angle attack. So if I'm initiating backstick, it's going to block that, which it did. So if you keep that here and the plane gives you back control, what's going to happen?
Yeah, then it bites at the bottom, doesn't it?
It's going to give you full deflection for its space in the flight envelope. So I release that pressure. And that's part of my Navy training, out of control training. So by doing that, it was in a neutral state when it gave me back control. We were descending at that point, but we didn't pitch up. Again, if I'd held that in there, probably would have. And I already knew people were on the ceiling. So it was that much G-force and rate was generated by the computers, 2 protection modes on top of each other, which is that still written in the books? It's never written in the book, your FCOM, but it can stack them. So we had 10 degrees of tail movement at 37,000 feet.
Yeah, it's massive.
Mach 0.82, 14 is maximum. Doesn't get any worse than that.
Did it scare you? You say it didn't, but deep down in those darkest times?
No, it didn't scare me, but
it would have scared me, Kev.
I was quite angry because I looked at the ocean and the first one, because the rate was so much, and I was really angry because I believed all the PR about how automation will improve things and keep you safe. But here's automation trying to kill me and everybody on board.
Yep.
So that, and plus I had for a nanosecond the thought, like, is this where my life is going to end today? And I got so angry that I basically was going to fight to the bitter end if I had to. But yeah, that was my state. I was not scared. More like livid. But I've got to control that, right? Because
you're far braver than I am.
Because I've got Ross in full fight or flight, like what's going on.
Absolutely.
And I've got to bring him back down. I've got to bring myself back down. Now, how do you do that?
Well,
I'm sure you have training like this.
So, actually, I did some research. I spoke to Ross, and I will tell you, Ross is a mate of mine, and I tried to get him to verify whether a statement you made was, I picked a hell of a week to give up sniffing glue.
Oh, that was later. Yeah.
That was later, was it? So that's So, but you spoke about that in the carrier where, you're flying an F-14 with no guns, no bombs, no fuel, and so the way you handled that was through, releasing the tension by telling jokes. So you went back to that old Navy training as well.
That's just the way we operate. And if you're relaxed and at ease, you're going to think more clearly than if you are tense, like I'm going to die. And I need Ross to support me.
Yep.
It's not on me to do everything. So I had to help him get down, help myself get down to a level where we could operate.
Were you able to think clearly, or were you clouded by, as you said, anger is a terrible emotion to try and manage when this is technical stuff where nobody knew what the heck was going on. So being angry doesn't help your state of mind necessarily either, does it?
Well, you learn in the Navy by on-the-job training, basically, to compartmentalize things. And I had lots of things swirling around that I couldn't think about. So I compartmentalize those, and I go into the mantra of aviate, navigate, communicate. I go into the SOP of ECAM actions, and to return us back to normal, try to get back to normal operation after the first pitch down.
Yeah.
But compartmentalizing is a critical element to surviving something like that. You can't grasp on any of those things. And eventually, though, once you put them in a box, you got to take them out later. And I took them out when I got to Perth at 5 o'clock in the morning. And again, your body reacts, everybody's body reacts differently to this sort of thing. And I was very emotional in my little room in Perth. And I thought, do I stop this or do I let it out? And I've seen enough History Channel documentaries with 70 and 80-year-old soldiers talking about things that happened 60 years before, and they never talk about it.
Never.
I said, so I'm not going to be one of those guys. So I let it out. But that was for 2 nights while we were in Perth, because it was a lot to process. And of course, you're going to do your own self-critique. Did I screw up? Did I do everything right? And I can say I did everything right.
Well, everybody says that, Kev. There was you absolutely didn't screw up. There was no screw up.
But initially, this is the initial.
We're very self-critical.
24.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is what makes you pilots. A good pilot is to be self-critical without beating yourself up. And I went through that loop a couple times, and I thought I did everything right.
It's interesting in our industry where if you're relaxed, and I'd like to think, having flown with you, I'd model myself a fair bit on the way you handle yourself. If you're relaxed and quite calm, people assume you're slack or lazy or... But I don't agree with that at all. I think, I try to be, have a very relaxed and calm and convivial. I want guys to do their best, guys and girls to do their best because they want to be working with you rather than because you're forcing them to. So
yeah, I've had that directed my way by senior captains.
Absolutely.
And I'm just going, well, you don't understand.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with you, Kev.
If everybody's relaxed, you pick up things quicker, you work together easier, and communicate better than if you're uptight and worrying about things. So, the CRM that when the 3 of us were there was exceptional, because I was flying the airplane. I was doing the radios. Peter was talking to the company at maintenance watch, trying to figure out what they could see. Ross was trying to get a damage report. So we were all separate in our own little worlds, but we kept coming back together and back and come together, back, until it got to the point where I had to do the briefing for approach. And that's basically where I said, we've got engines. We're still flying. We'll do a control check, because I didn't know if the flaps are going to come out.
Yep.
I didn't know if the gear was going to come down. I didn't know what was working, what was not working. But I would take everything that was working, and I said, we'll keep our speed up, because I have to prepare myself for last ditch close to the ground if it pitches down again, because we didn't know what was happening. So anyway, that's us. After I gave that briefing, and my 2 pilots were very concerned.
Everyone was listening attentively.
And I was looking out the window. I remember looking out the window. I said, so any questions? And they said, no. I said, okay. Yeah. And that's where I said, looks like I picked a bad day to give up sniffing glue. And just like that. And they both looked at me. I said, come on, let's just do this.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
So landed in Learmonth, the thing is horrific. Everybody knows about that. But where was your tie, Kev? The photos I've seen online.
Yeah, there's
You're standing in the Learmonth
It's still
terminal.
in QPA somewhere.
Never found
it.
Really?
I looked a couple of times. It got swallowed up somewhere, and I never found it. So
it just disappeared.
Yeah. It's still in the bowels of QPA somewhere.
Well, the other Sully...
The ghost of Captain Kev.
Well, there's another Sully who's got quite a famous story as well, and they asked him about the movie they made of him, and he said, it's not a bad movie, but it was factually incorrect because you have me Tom Hanks is wearing his hat. And he said, that's incorrect because I never took my hat to work, so that's not right. So when they make the Qantas 72 movie, we'll make sure that they don't try and put a tie on you, Kev, yeah.
Well, it was, of course, we all take our ties off up there.
Absolutely.
And so I thought about it. I looked once we got on the ground, and I'm looking, and I'm going, oh, screw it, I can't find it. And so, and we were on the ground for 10 hours.
Well, that was plenty of time to go back looking for your tie.
I looked a couple of
Should have
times.
sent Ross in to look for your tie.
We looked everywhere. It was gone.
So you'd had a lot of training about being tough, obviously. You know, going to war is a tough endeavour. So you turn up in civilian life, go through what was a horrific incident. Were you able to remain tough? There's a lot of time when you're on your own, you know, post-incident, you're at home on your own here. Did you struggle with that toughness or being perceived to be tough or being able to handle those horrible emotions?
I describe it as a total rewire of your threat response, of your personality after something like this. And that's where most people can't cope with PTSD.
Yep.
It's like, but I was like this. I used to do this.
Yep.
And now you're not doing it anymore. And now you're fighting, your new self is fighting your old self. And that's tough. And you have to come to grips to accept that's a fundamental thing that happens. And then it takes years to figure out what you can do, who you can talk to, who you don't want to talk to, who, you know, what situations spike your body response, because now it spikes quicker. And it's not like get an M16 and go to McDonald's and, you know, start spraying bullets. But you feel it. And I'm sure my face is a bit red now because but that's just, you know, I can't control that, but it happens. And so it took a long time. I went back flying for 8 years after that. But
did you enjoy that? Or
no, I did not have one good flight after that. Not one good flight, because I'm on high alert
all
the whole time.
Were you? Yeah.
And I had other things happen to me that were quite significant that I tried to talk about those, but the publisher took them out. They just went, oh, it's getting a bit technical. I said, this is part of the post 72. So
were you a crier? I cried when my daughters were born. Like, I cry all the time.
Now I'm very emotional.
Were you emotional, Kev? Were you
not like I am now. I mean, I watch kids' cartoons and I start crying. So,
and as you said, you don't. We know what caused it, but you don't know why, or it's just how you are. That's who you are now.
It's just a rewire of things you can't unwire. And
could somebody explain that to you, or you've had to work that over?
A little bit. I worked it out. I did a lot of research for that book, especially about PTSD, only to learn about myself first. And then once I started reading it or writing it, I thought this might actually help people. And it has, in lots of different, not pilots, people that have cancer, people that have lost a loved one, people that have been abused at work or as a child in their past. And I always get feedback on social media that, hey, I read your book and it really helped me. And so that's mission accomplished for me. But yeah, it's being tough is actually being courageous to say, yeah, it's knocked the stuffing out of me, but I will rebuild. And that toughness is evident there for me to be here.
And is it good days and bad days, or most days good now, Kev?
No, but I live, you know, my area of operation used to be this big, and now it's quite constrained. So that's okay, but it works. So yeah.
And you're still passionate about flying, or is that love of flying you had as a kid? You know, you spoke about in SoCal, and you know that all something we always. Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, I miss this. I still dream about this.
Or what about this sitting here on the table?
I don't dream about that. I used to have nightmares for a couple of years, flying nightmares in an airliner because there ain't no ejection seat in there.
No.
And I said, if there had been ejection seats in that plane, there'd have been 315 people punching out of that airplane because the inside was just wrecked. And people were, 119 people injured, a lot of serious injuries.
But you know that's not your fault. You still don't
But
take
I'm still
blame
responsible. Once I got on the ground, I'm the captain.
Of course we are.
No one could relieve me of that responsibility. And that is also from my Navy training, that once you're on duty until you're relieved.
Until it's, yep.
And even when we got to Perth, I thought we were all safe, but that didn't go according to plan either. And by now, I've been up for 20-something hours. And luckily, John Killingback was there, who was sent over as APA rep.
Yep.
Luckily, he was there, was able to take the load off of us. And then Phil Patterson eventually came over as well. But when I told them the story, they were they were just like this, in shock, as anyone would be.
I'm still in shock. Yeah, I flew the 330 as well, and I don't know how. I don't think I could have done what you've done, to be honest. You know, that's and I think that's important we say that. You know, without you, Kev, the result could have been incredibly different.
Oh, it was disappointing because I'd have extended periods of time off. You know, are you okay? Okay, no, I'm not okay. Oh, you're grounded. Okay, now what?
Come give us a call when you feel better.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And that is pretty lazy by company standards as a
we'd
welfare.
like to label it as their way of dealing with the issue, I guess. Yeah, I know.
Oh, it's just put your head in the sand.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
And of course I made that well known as well before I was medically terminated, not retired, in 2016. And so every time I would go into the simulator, nobody would talk about the KF-72. I said, aren't you telling guys about this? And the heads would go down. I said, why aren't you telling them? So they tried to bury us alive, or the whole story was an attempt to bury us alive.
But not even by apportioning blame. They didn't try and blame you. They just wanted to bury it. Yeah.
Who knows what goes on between headquarters and other headquarters around the planet, and lawyers, etc. So I was very disappointed. And the first time they actually presented, like a CRM of the Qantas 72 was in 2019.
Were you in it? I can't even remember.
No, because the book was coming out, and they knew the book was coming out. And so, we better do something. So there was somebody who's supposed to be me, and they're going, that's not Kev. So, anyway, I saw a little bit of it, and I said, what was it like? I said, pilots were saying whatever, but that's the first time they actually told the cabin crew what happened. And I've heard cabin crew getting up and saying, no, that's not what happened.
Yeah.
I've talked to Kev. This is not what happened. I'm just going, oh, well. I think I was approached indirectly. I said, oh, they can't afford me to do something like this. And, but, I had an engine blow up on me on the 767, fan blades separated, blew holes out of the side of the, there. I had multiple fumes events, turbulence events. And then of course this one afterwards, I had a, wind shear at altitude where the plane was climbing, with the autopilot engaged at MMO at 1,200 feet a minute.
Yeah.
And I would ask guys I flew with, what are you going to do? What would you do? And you get 3 separate answers. I don't know. I would leave it, or I would disconnect. I disconnected, but everyone was asleep. And what's it going to do? So yeah, there's plenty of times I've saved the bacon.
So I found it really interesting. So in that Aerodynamics from Naval Aviators, which was written in 1965, in the preface, I'm sure you've read it cover to cover, but it says, all Navy aviators possess a natural interest in the basic aerodynamic factors which affect the performance of all aircraft. Due to the increasing complexity of modern aircraft, the natural interest must be applied to develop a sound understanding of basic engineering principles and an appreciation of some of the more advanced problems of aerodynamics and engineering. The safety and effectiveness of flying operations will depend greatly on the understanding and appreciation of how and why aeroplanes fly. So that was written in 1965, Kev.
And let's look at, 767 doesn't have flight envelope protections.
Yep.
You are the bouncer to keep the plane within its operating envelope. This one is totally protected. And
which works fantastically until it doesn't work.
When it's working, it's easy to fly.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when they fail, they're harder to save.
Yeah.
And, complex systems fail in complex ways. And my disappointment was, why aren't you showing guys how this plane can fail? And, we have modules for wind shear. We have modules for terrain avoidance. Do a module to replicate what happened to us. And it's still not able to be replicated. So the only place that Airbus replicated it was in their, they call it the Iron Bird, which was a computer-based systems, a laptop-based systems computer, where they plugged in the spikes, etc., and they were able to replicate it. I said, okay, you got that. So
let's go try and
show that. Oh, no, we can't, because this is the future. And I think that's probably why we were not in spotlights, nice spotlights, because this is the future.
Yep.
And, engine blows up, we train for that.
Yeah.
You have a hydraulic failure, you train for that in the simulator. But this, you can't. And you should, because if you can handle something like that, startle factor, body response, systems that you don't know, you're in no man's land. What a great name for a book. But you're in no man's land because you don't know what's working and not working. And you search the displays and information systems that you can, but it's not going to show you what's happening.
You just had nothing.
So it's transparent, but that's okay. Won't me.
Can we talk about the way forward, I guess? So EASA and Airbus are working very hard on MCO, so minimum crew operations, and RCO, reduced crew operations. Now, I'm sure I won't have to ask too hard, but I'm pretty sure you got plenty of strong positions and thoughts on both of those.
I'll give you a secret ballot. It's, why is that? Because to me, in any airline, and I saw it when I was in APA, and you're seeing it now, where are the costs?
Well, we're a cost on the balance sheet. Absolutely.
Human cost.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the outsourcing, reducing contractual, hard fought.
Any entitlement, anything you can get a cost off the books.
Thank you. Yeah. And all the things that you're probably trading off now are the ones that came from EBA 5.
Absolutely.
When John Killingback and I stopped it.
Yep.
And John, to his credit, negotiated all those enhancements, which are now being traded off.
No, we're not trading off anything, Kev. I'll give you the tip.
Okay, good. Yeah. You shouldn't. And so
I know the history behind all of those.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So this push to use automation as a pilot, it's there to help pilots, not to replace pilots. But they want to replace a pilot on duty with the automation because the planes are so safe.
Well, can that be equivalent safety? This is a word they love, equivalent safety. So can one pilot and a sophisticated autopilot be as safe as 2, 3, 4 well-trained and well-rested pilots?
Okay, well, just look what happened to us. Is an automated system. One pilot, and this was in cruise, if I had been left up there by myself, imagine the workload.
Yeah,
I would have been under, and the plane's pitching down, and I'm by myself. And that is basically on LinkedIn, whenever these discussions come up, I just put QF72 because this is in cruise. This is,
middle of the day.
Worst. This is the worst thing that can happen. And why do you want to roll the dice and say, oh, but the automation is better? And it's cost cutting for sure. Because airlines going, oh, we can't get enough good pilots. So, in cooperation with Airbus, oh yeah, we can do it. And I disagree, of course.
Well, don't just disagree. I strongly disagree, Kev. Would that be an understatement?
Yeah, and it's that is the worst case scenario.
Yeah,
the worst case. Even an engine failure, which you train for, the startle is enough to derail a lot of people initially in a critical time when you should be controlling the airplane. And so it's nice to have somebody with you, taking, sharing the burden, etc., and working together rather than by yourself. I think it's crazy. But
we had an engine failure incident recently off 34 right in Sydney, and the incident was so well handled that the thing that made the news was the grass fire along the runway. So that doesn't it just prove that if you have two pilots who know what they're doing and they work well as a crew, it hardly was even a news event.
Well, yeah, and there have been several events in cruise like the engine shutdown coming across from, I don't know if that was Jet Connect or it was Qantas crew that were coming back from New Zealand.
Yep.
They had to shut down an engine.
Yep.
And right at the engine out decision
right
point,
absolutely.
so the worst possible point. And they worked through it. They got the plane on the ground safely. That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
But yeah, the planes still can't take themselves off. That's not automated yet. They can land automated. But up there, the environment, fatigue. I mean, look at the way this plane is configured in the cockpit. The toilet is external. The crew rest is external. You have a bulletproof door. You have secure access. I mean, it took us a while to work
to get everyone back on deck to
get Peter back.
Yep.
With the scope and the pace of all the things that were going wrong, you have to build in that time. And so in this current configuration, even A350, I think, is all external.
Yep.
So, okay, if you're going to make the toilet internal and the crew rest internal, and you still need the security doors because that threat will never go away. Okay, then, yeah, maybe look at it, but you can't do it now.
Well, they're talking about a Perspex wall and a porta potty with a radio panel in the bathroom.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing with turbulence. People say, oh, they should have kept their seatbelts fastened, but there's no toilet built into your passenger seat. You got to use the toilet, and the pilots do too.
What does now look like, Kev? How are you filling in your days now? And
I feel okay. How do I look?
Picked up a hell of a day to give up drinking.
So now everything's
photography's a hobby of
do.
yours?
I do trips like that, and photography's always been a hobby. I've got lots of hobbies, lots of chores, lots of family duties, etc. So, plus trying to look lean and mean.
It's not easy, is it?
So you got to do it. Yeah. So it's my people say, how do you fill in your day? And I go, that's a dumb question.
Yeah. Oh, well, people are interested though.
I know they do, but it's like, well, you tell me how you fill in your day.
I mow the lawn and I procrastinate a fair bit. And absolutely.
There's plenty of things. So I'm never bored, and I will just smell the roses as much as I can with the time that I have left in my life, and I will continue to advocate for pilot mental health to crewed operations, CRM, all sorts of issues that are going to be under threat, and even pilot fitness to fly. And I read with alarm the ATSB report from last year of a turbulence event into Brisbane, where four people were injured, 3 of them crew.
Yep.
They landed. It sounded very rough, and same kind of injuries that you would get from the QF-72, by the way.
Yep.
And so one crew member continued to operate for days with a concussion. And the ATSB report brings out in 2 separate entries that this is a flaw, because the company expects you as a crew member to self-assess your fitness to fly. So if anything happens to you, you have a fumes event, you have an engine failure, you have a turbulence event, anything that's remotely affecting you, I'd say, yeah, check me out.
Yeah.
The fumes event, or the fumes protocol, which from the ones I'd had earlier on 767, I pushed for that. And I wrote part of it to just say, you can't put another pilot, you can't make the pilot land a plane with fumes event and put him in another airplane.
Clear the air and away you go again.
It's just like pulling the pin on a hand grenade and saying, okay, fly off, because that's easier for you to make your schedule. And I would say, no, I'm not doing that. Well, we'll have to cancel the flight. I said, what did I just inhale? Oh, we don't know. I said, why are you doing this? So these sorts of things I did then. Pilots have to be aware that this is the position more and more isolating you when you go to work. and the things that can happen that are very subliminal, but can bite you later if you don't say anything. That I'm fine. I feel okay, so I'll just go flying.
Later on, yeah.
So no.
On a beautiful winter's day in Sydney, do you look up at seeing the aeroplanes depart off 3-4 and go, yeah, I missed that?
People say, what are you doing? I said, I just sit in the front yard and look at the planes flying over. No, I don't.
Don't miss it.
I'll fly in business class, with a bottle of champagne.
Sounds great.
But I won't. I don't miss this flying. I miss this flying.
I was going to say, do you miss that young kid flying? And
of course. And that person was bulletproof, and he lived the best life that he wanted to live. And I'm very grateful I was able to achieve that. And even what happened here is another level. It's sort of the Top Gun of commercial aviation.
Absolutely.
To deal with all the things that were dumped on us. And my cabin crew were exceptionally brave. The passengers were brave. The flying doctors flew extended hours. All the medical people that were sent up, all the police, those, they're all heroes on that day. There were some that were not heroes, but we won't talk about them. But the people that supported us were amazing.
Oh, it's an amazing story, Kevin. I didn't bring you on to talk about the book. I brought you on to talk about you because it is an amazing story. You're a great friend of ours, of pilots everywhere. Advocacy is very important. We'll continue to listen because when we stop listening, I think that's when we've missed the mark. So, Kev, I'd like to thank you for your time today, and everybody, thanks for watching and listening, and stick with it.